Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here to talk about stuff. This time on the show, we are talking about Batman again.
Yes, Batman Agains.
Yes, Batman Agains. We are talking about Batman Again with Batman on Film Part 8 this week, where we are jumping into 2005's Batman Begins, the beginning, appropriately, of the Chris Nolan Batman trilogy starring Christian Bale, which changed sort of superhero movies and a lot of the business of all of this forever, even though Batman Begins itself was a somewhat modest effort. It grossed $350 million, very different day and age. You know, obviously The Dark Knight did 3 times that and changed everything, but of course Batman Begins is a very important aspect of this whole cinematic story we're tracing. So that is going to be the topic this week, Batman Begins. But Sean, before we get into all of that, this is our last episode that we are recording together in the same room, looking at each other, say one mic for the foreseeable future.
Yes, because this is we are pre-recording this before I am on my way down to Texas.
Yep, you're walking there, right?
Yes, I'll be walking there. I've got my bindle back home. I think it'll last me. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So
I asked you if you'd give me a lift, but you just said no.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan, could you just give me a ride to Texas tomorrow? I'll give you a 20 for gas.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but how you feeling, Sean?
I'm tired from packing all that shit. It's a weird thing of where. So my last day at the school I was working at was Friday, which is yesterday from when or 2 days from when we're recording this. We're recording this on a Sunday. And it has not at all registered to me that that's I don't work there anymore, because I realized, for the past 3 weeks, my job has been moving shit on my house, and then I'm moonlighting as a teacher is kind of what it felt like. Because that part is a lot harder than watching a bunch of kids, take quizzes and shit like that you do for finals.
So you're no longer employed by Jeffco?
I'm no longer employed, no.
You want to spill some tea?
Sure. Yeah,
I'm
sure.
just kidding. I'm just giving you space if you want to do anything.
It's working in public education means that there's you get exposed to a lot of the grimy side of local politics with money, where that goes and what it influences, and particularly in the time of COVID, you get a lot of okay, so this is why this mask restriction is getting removed, or this where this push for in-person out of nowhere is coming from, even though the district had said they would be 2 weeks later or something, and now it's going to be tomorrow. That has been a very exhausting experience. That I think a lot of the people working in my school are awesome, but a lot of the people at the top did not have, I think, the experience to know how to manage that experience. And how to deal with that kind of stuff. So there's part of me that's very relieved to get to roll the dice and see what it's like at another district.
You're being so diplomatic. I wanted the thing that could possibly sink your future career.
I'm going to avoid putting that out there on the internet.
That's fine. I mean, what's funny about this is you and I both went to school in the Jefferson County public school system when we were coming up, and that's where we met, was in middle school.
Yep.
And so, the whole time you've been working for them on this podcast, I've been trying to avoid bad-mouthing them, as I normally do in my daily life. But it's a fucking shitty district in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
A lot of great people.
Yes.
A lot of great teachers. We had great teachers growing up. We also went to a school that when they built the new building, they built it for 200 fewer kids than we had at the time in a time of growth.
Yes.
So, that kind of thing. Right.
At least we had a new building. The school that I was working at has had the same building for 40 years.
Yes, exactly. It's a whole thing. Both our middle school and our high school were right next to either prisons or juvenile detention centers, which
is very good, great motivation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We could, in the new building, you could wave to the kids at the juvie. It was, if you were in trouble, you'd walk over there.
That's what we did for detention.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm just kind of shooting the shit here. Sean, I don't know if there's a way to mark the occasion of, from this point on, we will be recording podcasts from states that aren't Colorado, which has not happened. This is the 10th year of the podcast. We've always had at least one foot in this state. Even while I've been living in Iowa, you've been living here. So it's, it's kind of a new era. And it's not going to change the show, really, because we've been recording remotely for 3 years now anyway, and I think we've gotten good at that, and I think our rhythms are there. I always like being able to record in person because it's fun. I like being able to see you and all that stuff. But it's good. I mean, I'm happy for you. I think we're both in good places.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big change.
Yeah, at some point we'll have to do a video podcast or something so everyone can see I'll be wearing a cowboy hat the entire time I'm recording a podcast in Texas. Not because I want to. It's actually Texas law, I found out.
They have been passing a lot of crazy laws recently.
A lot of weird laws, and there's the podcaster cowboy law that just went into effect.
Sean, I bet if you ran for fucking Congress and pretended to be a Republican, I bet you could get that passed. Right?
Yeah, because they'd be like, what is a podcast? Liberals hate it. Oh, great.
Yeah.
We'll pass it then.
Yeah. The Own the Libs Act of 2021.
Exactly.
Podcasters must wear cowboy hats.
There's libs love them podcasts.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just reflecting on life right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it in my life, I have to say, like reflection going on, because I went on Facebook for some reason the other day to check a message. I only go because people in my department use Facebook, and I have to check it for messages.
Tragic.
I know. But I checked, and I had an alert from the group planning our 10-year high school reunion. What the fuck? I mean, I know because it's 2021 and we graduated in 2011, but it's not okay. It's not. I don't like that.
Jonathan, we're not that far away from being 30 years old.
I know, I don't like that either.
Yeah.
I know. I don't like any of this.
I mean, this is one of the things I'm going to have to now, face very directly once I'm living in Texas and I'm only an hour from my brother, is that my brother, who's 4 years older than me, which is older, but not that much older, is married, has a house now, and I have a sister-in-law. And that's the thing that's, has been technically true for, 8 months. But it's only been technically true. I haven't had to, experience that, because we are old men.
I have fucking two nephews and a niece now.
Yep.
All this stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. The world is crazy. I just wanted to give a little bit of that reflection on the absurdity of adult life at the beginning of this show as we continue, the march forward.
Yeah, as we talk about a movie that is about, someone trying to escape from the absurdity of adult life by dressing up as a Batman and beating people in the face.
Is that our transition?
That might as well be.
All right. Batman Begins from 2005. This is the movie that, effectively puts Chris Nolan into the mainstream map.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was known before, and his early movies are really good, I will say. If you've never seen Following, which is his first movie, it's black and white. It's his most, out-of-time, time-bending chronology movie. I really do like that one. It's the Criterion Collection actually released that one. It's very good. Memento is a classic. It's the backwards movie with Guy Pearce. Insomnia is a remake of a Swedish film, and it's actually pretty good. It's Al Pacino and Robin Williams. And if you've never seen that one, I actually really like that movie. It's got a very good late period Al Pacino performance, and one of Robin Williams' better dramatic performances from the 2000s. So that's a good movie. But so he had kind of been coming up clearly an up and comer. These movies were making a splash. Interesting director. He had this kind of ongoing relationship with Warner Brothers. And while all of this is happening, obviously, Batman is in this weird turnaround where a lot of stuff happens between Batman and Robin and Batman Begins. I think we told you last time, or 2 times ago with Batman and Robin, how they wanted to make a 5th Batman movie, Batman Triumphant, I think is what it was going to be called. And it would have been... no, it was actually... Batman Triumphant was the fake title that fans put around. It was going to be called Batman Unchained.
Right.
And that would have been a...
Equally awful titles.
Yes. It would have been a Scarecrow movie with the Joker by Jack Nicholson would have been the plan, returning as a hallucination. Harley Quinn would have been another villain, written now as the Joker's daughter, not his girlfriend, which is a whole Freudian thing I don't really want to unpack. And that would have all been a Joel Schumacher film. That ultimately got canceled. I think we talked a little bit about that last time. And then there were a lot of different proposals. They were actually, we talked about this last time, why has Warner never done a Batman Beyond film? They did briefly consider one at the turn of the century, but didn't do it. What they really were thinking about was they wanted to do something around the theme of Frank Miller's Batman Year One, which makes sense because there had never been a Batman origin movie yet.
Yeah.
Even though we have seen his origin a million times, and even the Tim Burton movie kind of shows a version of it, even though it's in flashback.
Yeah.
But we haven't done that. Frank Miller's Batman Year One looms large. So there's all this stuff going on. There's one pitch for a movie that is called Batman Dar Knight. I don't know how you're supposed to say it. It is spelled D-A-R capital K-N-I-G-H-T, but all as one word.
Yeah. This was the early 2000s,
Yeah.
We were dumb.
It was very dumb. Largely inspired by The Dark Knight Returns, would have seen Bruce Wayne, I'm quoting from Wikipedia here, giving up his crime-fighting career after becoming disillusioned with his alias's inability to inspire fear in his enemies, and Dick Grayson attending Gotham University. Dr. Jonathan Crane uses his position as a professor of psych at Gotham University and as head psychiatrist at Arkham to conduct his fear experiments. This element would later appear in Batman Begins. During a vengeful confrontation with a colleague, Dr. Kirk Langstrom, Crane unknowingly initiates Kirk's transformation into Man-Bat. Citizens of Gotham believe Man-Bat to be Batman's return, and so Bruce becomes Batman to clear his name and solve the mystery of Man-Bat. So that would have been sort of like one idea that they were doing. You can read the screenplay for that. It is out there. Lee Shapiro and Stephen Wise wrote that one. At some point, they were considering a Robin spinoff with Chris O'Donnell. None of that happened.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Can you imagine him having to lead an entire movie?
Yes. So, but let's see. So we had... oh man, the screen adaptation of Batman Beyond, they did actually have Paul Dini working on that script, although it never happened. They had Darren Aronofsky, this is the big one, was working, he was going to direct and co-write with Frank Miller a Batman Year One movie. And this one got pretty far. So this was the first time they're like, okay, we're fully rebooting. We're doing it. Darren Aronofsky's version made it pretty far. Christian Bale had even been approached for Batman in that version, even though that didn't happen. Aronofsky wanted to have Joaquin Phoenix as Batman, which is, wow, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But eventually they cancel that when they are trying to make a Batman versus Superman movie.
Huh.
Yes. So this is one they're working on for a while. This one, this is also around the time where they're doing the various different Superman drafts. At some point there was the J.J. Abrams one, there's the Wolfgang Peterson one, Kevin Smith is in there somewhere. Fucking Avika Goldsman wrote Forever and Batman and Robin, and then they rehire him, Sean, to do their Batman v Superman thing. This would have been, here's from Wikipedia again, would have had Bruce Wayne going through a mental breakdown after his 5-year retirement from crime fighting. Dick Grayson, Alfred Pennyworth, and Commissioner Gordon are all dead, but Bruce finds solace in his fiancée, Elizabeth Miller. Oh, goody! Avika Goldsman would have written another love interest. Meanwhile, Clark Kent is struggling because of his recent divorce from Lois Lane. This sounds delightful.
Yeah,
Sean.
What a fun-sounding superhero movie. Here's a Batman who's everyone he cared about has died, and then here's a Superman that just is fresh from a divorce.
In this world, Clark and Bruce are best friends, and Clark is Bruce's best man. After the Joker kills Elizabeth on their honeymoon, Bruce swears revenge while Clark tries to hold him back. Bruce blames Clark for her death. I don't know why, and the two go against one another. Ultimately, Lex Luthor is revealed to have masterminded the entire plot to get Batman and Superman to destroy each other. The two decide to team up and stop Luthor. This sounds like fanfic.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic, you shouldn't make a movie that is about Batman and Superman fighting each other. It should be a movie about Batman and Superman team up, and they fight each other at some point over the course of the movie because you have to, legally. But, yeah, bad idea.
This got canceled because then they wanted to do Superman Flyby again. That's the movie that J.J. Abrams was writing that I think had a giant spider in it, as Kevin Smith has told us. The one movie that did get out of this entire cycle was Catwoman. That did come out. The Halle Berry Catwoman. That's the only one that got made. At one point, they were thinking of a Justice League movie, all this fucking shit. Finally, though, they wind up having Chris Nolan kind of sign on to this and David S. Goyer to help work on the script. And I think Chris Nolan had enough of a vision, which is clear from the movie, to, like, make a movie. And so they finally trust him to make a movie. And that is what we get with Batman Begins. Christian Bale was asked to do Batman in at least 2 other versions of this. In that one I was telling earlier, the earlier script by Darren Aronofsky, and then Batman v Superman they also wanted him for. But finally they get him for Batman Begins. I mean, Christian Bale is a pretty hot talent at this point. American Psycho is like 2001 or something. So, like, I mean, I think everyone wanted him for everything. And he's pretty obvious casting for Bruce Wayne, I feel like, especially if you've seen, like, American Psycho. Yeah. It's like, that's the guy you want, obviously. But Chris Nolan comes aboard and puts it all together. And this movie comes out in the middle of 2005. Do you remember seeing Batman Begins when it came out?
Yes, I do.
I do very vividly. This is one I went to a press screening for while I was writing for the Colorado Kids. I've told you all my origin story with that before. I remember that press screening was at, I think, the AMC Westminster Promenade, and I remember it vividly because we went in, and if you don't know how press screenings work, usually it's the public, and then there's a couple of rows reserved for press, and they just put tape over the seats, and you expect that people aren't animals who will just take those seats anyway. So I take one seat. I'm with my brother Thomas, and then a family just comes in and takes the rest of the press seats. And there's a whole fight that breaks out around that I'm a kid trying not to get involved in. So I remember that. Then we saw the movie, and I will say at the time, Batman Begins blew my mind.
Yeah, the same with me.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
we should also contextualize that this movie came out when we were in middle school. So
yes.
like 7th grade or something.
Yeah, we were 13. Yeah. So like 12 or 13. We would have both been 12 when this came out. So yeah, but I mean... I do think it's worth contextualizing the moment this comes out in, because remember, the most recent Batman movies were Forever and Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
And even the most recent good Batman movies were Batman and Batman Returns, which are divisive, to put it lightly, and are not sort of everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
You know, you've had the animated series in the meantime, you've had some different things, but like, this was the moment where Batman's coming back on screen, and it felt like a big, maybe, return to form. I think the title is low-key kind of brilliant. Batman Begins, like, it just is a statement of intent of what this movie's going to do. I think it got people into the theater.
Yeah.
The trailers were very attention-grabbing. And, you know, I feel like this is a movie I certainly loved at the time. I think everyone did. Obviously, that built up to Dark Knight, which is the real inflection point for all of this, and we'll talk about that next time, obviously.
Yeah.
But Batman Begins is sort of a reinvention and rehabilitation moment for the character. It is always surprising me to go back and look. Can you scroll down? What was the box office for this movie? It says at the bottom of that box.
Let me
right there.
Down here. Yeah, 333.6 million.
That's not that much.
Yeah.
Like, that's actually, I think, even less than Forever did. And I remember this as being a big hit because Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises are both billion-dollar movies.
Yeah. But also, I mean, again, we were in middle school, so every middle schooler, and particularly a middle school boy, this was like your dream come true.
Yes.
Like, right? It's here's this like intense, gritty, adult feeling version of Batman that is on the big screen, and it's flashy, and it's got a great soundtrack, and it's got really great actors.
Yes.
And it's like a movie that you could see with your parents, and you come out and like your parents like it too, right?
Yeah.
There's like anyone who saw this movie was like at least enjoyed it, if didn't like fall in love with it.
Right. And you know, because I think my point with the box office is just that, I mean, one, there were billion-dollar movies back then. The only two that had done it by 2005 are Titanic and Return of the King. So it's a very rare thing. This was a good hit by those standards, but really it was less about, like, this movie did not make the giant cultural impact of The Dark Knight. But what it did is it had very positive word of mouth and good reviews. And I think the biggest thing about it, and this is still my opinion about it today, is it's a ridiculously well-made movie. It's Christopher Nolan. Love him, hate him, whatever. He is a very competent filmmaker.
Yes.
And he has great collaborators, and his movies look and sound and play good. And this is like some of the most competent filmmaking Batman has ever had. I think that's part of what sold Batman Begins to people, I think, is that it felt like a fucking movie. And you also have to remember what superhero movies felt like in 2005. Because it's not just Batman. Like, the only good superhero movies of the early 2000s are the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Otherwise, you have the Bryan Singer X-Men movies. I know some people like X2. I like X2 a little bit too, but they also are movies that are deeply ashamed of being superhero movies. You have fucking Ang Lee Hulk. You have, which is probably on the better side of these. I mean, you have the Blade, which I guess Blade and Blade 2 are good in different ways. But
Blade and Blade 2 are kind of old at this point. Like, you're at Blade Trinity by now.
Which is shit.
Yeah.
So, like, so you have a lot of, like, the early Marvel experiments. You've had Fantastic Four at this point.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting a movie that I think looks as good as Batman Begins, that sounds as good as Batman Begins, that is relatively innovative in a lot of what it does stylistically. I mean, what Hans Zimmer does with music in this series is changes the direction of Hollywood scoring for a decade at least. We're still feeling the ramifications of that. What it does with, like, it's not a CGI heavy movie. It's mostly practical effects, and that is, again, Fantastic Four, I think, is the same year. And we all remember what Mr. Fantastic looked like in that. Didn't work. This is why the One Piece live-action show shouldn't be a thing. Anyway, so yeah, like, all of that, I think, just... And like, the actors. That it's a really good, like, A-list fucking cast. You have Michael Caine giving his prestige to this thing, right?
Yeah.
You have
You've got
Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
You have Gary Oldman. It's a really strong cast. This was, I feel like, an attempt to do superhero movies in it's something akin to like a tradition of quality, which is a loaded term in film studies because of like French New Wave stuff. But that is kind of what they're trying to do, and to a certain extent, it very much works.
Yeah, and it approaches the source material like very seriously, arguably too seriously, which we'll get into. But like it cares about Batman as a thing in a way that, maybe the directors of, some like Fantastic Four, Daredevil, or fucking whatever, like maybe they did care about the source material.
Oh, Daredevil, that's one I blocked out.
But you can't feel it by watching the movie, right? Like those feel like movies that were just sort of glommed out of like a studio that is very ashamed that they made something based on a kid's property or something.
Chris Nolan likes Batman. Chris Nolan is interested. Like, you can tell that by watching the movie. It's someone who has thought about this character. Whether or not you agree with all the thoughts, that thought is clear.
Yeah, and it's pulling direct inspiration from, like, most notably Batman Year One, but, like, other kind of Batman stuff in the milieu, in the classic tradition of superhero movies. It is not an adaptation of a comic book story, because that's just anathema to comic book films. I don't know why. They just can't do it. But it takes some scenes and some ideas from Batman Year One.
There's a short Batman the Man Who Falls is a comic that it pulls its like opening from. It's a very I read that one shot definitely. It's a very striking piece. But yeah, it also has some fairly deep cuts of villains, Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
That I think was interesting for the time. You didn't get a lot of that. So yeah, so that's Batman Begins in its historical moment, and certainly I have a lot of nostalgia for different parts of this movie. Just down to like the fucking poster, I think is so good with like Batman, and then like his body is like made of bats, and it's this like brown amber color scheme that the whole movie uses as well. And like that just like color scheme, I have some nostalgia for because this movie was big back in the day. But yeah, so that's was what we felt about it back then. But a lot of this project, of course, is looking at them now. And I'm really, really curious, Sean. This was one I was really excited to revisit. And I had a reaction to this movie I was not expecting. What about you? What did you think revisiting Batman Begins?
Yeah, so, like, I mean, part of the... So I haven't seen... The last time I saw Batman Begins was probably around 2012, because I watched Dark Knight Rises in the theater, and either before or after that, probably before that, I rewatched Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and I don't think I ever revisited these movies after Dark Knight Rises, for probably a number of reasons. And I've always remembered, like, and I think this is probably still going to prove true, I always remembered kind of secretly having Batman Begins being my favorite of those three. And I have always had a mixed feeling on Christopher Nolan's movies. In that, like, and I think that this is going to still prove very true, and I think watching this movie again kind of helped me put a finger on it. I think Christopher Nolan is very, very good at making movies, and I also think he's kind of dumb. I think he's both those things at the same time, right?
I agree. This is a really interesting take, but I like it.
But it's like, it's what it feels like of where it's like, in the moment, so much of Batman Begins feels fantastic. And it's like, there are scenes and lines of dialogue and performances and musical beats, and like, this is some good shit. There's also some shit in it that's awful. Like, I think the action climax is just like really bad in a way I did not remember how awful the editing is. But generally speaking, just like the beat to beat of the movie is extremely enjoyable. But when you think about anything like larger in terms of the structure of the narrative, or what is this movie trying to say, like, I'm kind of lost. I really don't know much of what it's like really earnestly trying to say. I think it says a lot of bad, dumb shit. I think it largely says it on accident. I hope it says it largely on accident. But it's just like this sort of like movie kind of about nothing. And I should say with Christopher Nolan, the last Christopher Nolan movie I watched also was Dark Knight Rises. I watched Batman Begins. I watched Memento. I've seen Batman Begins, Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, and I've not seen any of the movies he's made since, which would be like Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Tenet. Because I don't love these movies that much overall, and I don't love his style that much overall, enough that like removed from the Batman-ness of it, it doesn't attract me that much. And I think it's because like I would put Inception and Prestige in this bucket too, of where it's like I kind of end up at the end of these movies being like, well, what is this like about, right? Like, what is this like really trying to say? What is going on with the characters? What is going on with like the themes? And I'm left very kind of cold and blank at the end of the movie. Outside of, I think like this movie ends up stumbling into some like really awful shit, particularly with the like the way it understands Batman, his role in the world, it taking Batman too seriously and straightforward as a character, not really interrogating the character, but wanting him to be set in a world that is like the world we live in, which is a world of social inequality and economic inequality that creates criminality as we understand it, right? To use that word in kind of like sneer quotes. And this movie wants to be set in a world that has those things and acknowledge those things exist, but also be in a world where Batman can somehow be meaningful by running around and punching people in the face, and that can affect some kind of change, even though it doesn't. But the movie doesn't feel like it's aware that it doesn't change anything. And that's where I mean that the movie just sort of stumbles about and doesn't feel like it's about anything by the time you get to the end of it.
Yes. So first off, your, I think, take on Christopher Nolan is not uncommon.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who I think have that feeling too. And I've had a complex relationship with Chris Nolan. I generally like his movies. He is a tremendously talented filmmaker.
Yes.
I do think like people who try to like undercut that are like, you can dislike the movies without saying the filmmaking is bad, because the filmmaking is often beyond reproach. I don't think Batman Begins is an example of that because it has some really bad action.
Yeah.
But like Inception, which I think is his best movie, is an editorial fucking masterpiece.
Uh-huh.
The work Wally Feister on cinematography and Lee Kirk, I think is his editor, do on that movie of the planes of action and the way time is connected and all of it cascading is unfucking believable. And I happen to like the characters and sort of themes of that movie enough to like buy into it, and I really love that movie. And I think that is the peak of his filmmaking prowess, and it's really impressive. But in general, his movies are just very well made. He has really good collaborators. He's had an obvious effect on the medium, even though, like, I don't think he's particularly innovative himself as a filmmaker, but you don't have to be innovative to be good.
Yeah.
And I think some of his stuff with, like, editorial and, like, timeline shifting and stuff has proven, influential, and he does it pretty good. Like Dunkirk is a really good example of that as well. Dunkirk also has some thuddingly stupid moments in it, but that's kind of the thing. And my breaking point with Chris Nolan did come with his most recent movie, Tenet, which is as well made as these other ones, but it is a movie literally about nothing. Mm-hmm. Like you can at least acknowledge that like these other movies you're saying have attempts at themes.
Yes.
They definitely have ideas.
Uh-huh.
And I think maybe we disagree on how well they come together or something, whatever. Tenet does not have a theme. It does not have like some idea. It's just all 100. It's like, oops, all plot mechanics, the movie. And like I end that movie just utterly cold. Which, weirdly, there are some people who have been in your position, Sean, who love Tenet because they like that it kind of dispenses with that and is just like weird dream logic, plot mechanics, and filmmaking for 2.5 hours, and they like that about it. And I've seen that reaction, too. I'd be kind of curious your reaction to Tenet on that level. But, yeah, so he's an interesting filmmaker. My memory of these movies, so I don't think I've seen Batman Begins in full since 2012. I did see Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. Fucking Dark Knight Rises, that title.
This is the one thing I kind of will never forgive you for doing this topic, is it's resurrecting one of the oldest podcast jokes we have, which is us not being able to remember the title of that fucking movie.
Yes. The Dark Knight Rises, they did the Denver Film Center around like 2015, 2016 did a Chris Nolan film series where they had all his movies on 35 millimeter, and I went to see all of them. But the one they didn't have was Batman Begins, because for whatever reason Chris Nolan didn't want the 35 millimeter prints distributed. I think he thought there was something wrong with them, but for whatever reason, so I didn't see it then. But I saw the other ones again, and I really enjoyed that experience because I think The Prestige is very good. I think Inception is very good. So interesting filmmaker. And in general with the Batman movies, I think The Dark Knight, we'll see what I think next time, because it's been a couple years. In general, though, I think Dark Knight is great. I think it is a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. I think the way it keeps up and ratchets up tension over the course of the film to make what I call the 2.5 hour prolonged heart attack effect is really compelling, and I've always liked that. Obviously, Heath Ledger's Joker, all-time great kind of thing. So that's the one that I've always been like solid on. Dark Knight Rises, I tried to talk myself into liking at the time. You can hear it on an old episode of this podcast. I'm an idiot. And then later, when I saw it again in that Denver Film Center screen, I came out going, that is the best made shitty movie I've ever seen. Because The Dark Knight Rises is beautifully made. Oh my God. Chris Nolan can spend a budget.
Yes.
He is not someone who you spend $200 million and go, where did that go?
Yeah, it's not the Joel Schumacher effect.
No, it's the exact opposite. But The Dark Knight Rises is, I think, a truly terrible film script. Everything else, everything else about that movie is good. Tom Hardy is fucking legendary in that movie, but that script is awful. So, anyway, and then Batman Begins, my memory of it was always that I thought it had a great first half and kind of a weak second half. I guess that's generally somewhat of what I think about it now. But my reaction to it this time, getting into the modern day, I am deeply and profoundly uncomfortable with this movie's politics. Mm-hmm. So I had a little Twitter debate, not argument, with someone the other day, where I was saying that, because there's been a lot of conversation since Zack Snyder's Justice League came out, and then he's got this new movie, Army of the Dead, about like Zack Snyder's use of fascist aesthetics sometimes in his movies. Mm-hmm. And I've made that criticism too. You all know I am not new to this. I feel like I was sounding that drum before a lot of people were. Yeah, I mean, that's on our Batman v Superman podcast when that movie came out. That's one of the major things we talked about. Yes. And there's always been a debate about like how much of a conservative like bent runs through his movies, and it's hard to tell. Mm-hmm. And he had an interview recently where he said, someone asked, like, directly, what are your politics? He said, I'm a Democrat, I vote Democrat, I consider myself a progressive, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't surprise me, because Zack Snyder seems kind of like that person in real life. And obviously, movies are never a one-to-one perfect reflection of someone's politics. Yeah. And what I said, I did a little Twitter thread saying this, and this led to this debate, where I said, this makes sense to me, because I think the thing about Zack Snyder's movies is that I think they're mostly ideologically incoherent. Yeah. Is that I think, and this, because I recently rewatched Batman v Superman, and what struck me about it is that I think as a story, it is actually trying to go for something that is interrogating toxic masculinity. Like, it makes a very deliberate choice that the reason Batman's parents die is that his dad throws a punch. Mm-hmm. And that Bruce always chooses violence, and then at the end of the movie, Superman teaches him a different way. Now, I think in execution, it does that very poorly. Yeah. And I think Zack Snyder's aesthetics, because he's so in love with kind of superhero, manly man, Batman, hard-body Batman, that I think he loses the forest for the trees. And so that's where I say, like, it's a little incoherent. Yeah. And I think that's true in, like, Watchmen is a great example of this, too. I mean, it's not, I don't think Zack Snyder doesn't understand what Alan Moore is going for. I just think he can't resist making Owlman look cool. Yes, or Rorschach, and how Rorschach is treated in that movie. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think Zack Snyder's a fucking idiot. I don't think he misses fundamentally that Rorschach is complicated. He just can't resist making Rorschach cool, and Rorschach isn't really supposed to be cool. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I mean. And so we had this little debate about how much is it a coherent ideology. And I am open to multiple sides of that debate. And what I find interesting about his Justice League is I think it actually feels fresh for him politically and like ideologically. I think it is much more humanist than his other stuff. But anyway, why am I talking about Zack Snyder here? Well, my number one reaction to Batman Begins, and I did a little Twitter thread on this the other day, is that I think this movie, and I 100% think this is true of Chris Nolan's other Batman movies, is much more coherently conservative in its ideology than anything Zack Snyder has ever made. I am not saying that to let Zack Snyder off the hook for anything I consider like kind of fascistic in his movies, or Sucker Punch being wildly misogynistic. Maybe by accident, I don't know, but it is. Uh-huh. That's not my point. My point is, I do think Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises pretty directly and coherently espouse a pretty conservative worldview. It's basically, it feels like to me, this is Batman 24, right? It's the same kind of politics espoused by the TV show 24 with Jack Bauer. Also, they treat Batman in the same way as like, I'm the guy who has to get my hands dirty, and if I got to torture a guy to find out where the nuke is, then I got to do it, Mr. President, is basically what Batman is, only he's doing it on his own, not with Mr. President. But, you know, even 24 in its later years does some stuff where it tries to, like, gesture in other directions, and I don't think the Chris Nolan Batman movies have that. I think they're conservative. And that alone does not make them bad, and we'll talk about all of that. And when I say conservative, I actually do mean like conservative. I don't mean like modern American Republicans who are fascist and anti-democratic. I don't really think these movies are fascist in that sense. Uh-huh. Yeah. Maybe a little here and there. In so much as like the policing, the vigilante running around on the street using violence to suppress people. And But I do think there's an old school conservatism to it. And I think the worldview that Batman Begins espouses, and this is where I become deeply uncomfortable with it, and reminds me, oh shit, this is the first time I'm really watching this movie as a self-aware adult, is that it has a view of crime and criminality, but also of goodness and heroism that is very individual-centered and is not about societal systems. And the societal systems it does see are like, we have too many criminals, or that the police are infiltrated, which are ultimately individual failings.
Yeah.
It views, it is very much on the level of like rich people who use their money benevolently are an unalloyed good and like should be allowed to spend their money however they want. Like that's kind of the whole thing with the Waynes in this that I find uncomfortable. The way it views criminals as like an anthropological project, like they are somehow othered and unhuman. They have sapped some part of their humanity to become this other thing. Hence, Batman must sap some part of his humanity to face them is a major theme in this movie. The way it deals with just poverty and crime and desperation and all these things, and the points it comes to are things I'm really uncomfortable with. And it's not... And I thought we would have... A lot of this would be like, the last year of conversation about abolish the police and George Floyd and that kind of stuff. But honestly, it goes deeper than that for me. Like, I will just say, putting my cards on the table, one of my most deeply held political beliefs, and it goes far beyond 2020 and the protests there, it goes much further back in my life, is that I don't believe in prison. Mm-hmm. I think it is a evil thing. I think the idea of locking human beings up behind bars is gross and terrifying to me. When I was a kid, I would have nightmares about the idea of like being locked up because I would see it on TV and stuff, and I found it terrifying. And for a while, I thought it was like this irrational fear of being, not irrational in the United States, I guess, of being like falsely accused of something.
Right.
But then you think about it enough and go, okay, but what if someone did do something really bad? I still find that bad. I still find that a bad way to deal with societal ills. Is to lock people up. There's a prison pretty near where you and I live that's minimum security, but I drive by it and it's got barbed wire on the fences and it makes me sick. I hate that. And I honestly, that has been a political belief I've held since before I think I fully awoke to some of the issues with policing in America, which has been since Ferguson and stuff. I've learned a lot more about that, and I also believe that we need a very, very different version of law enforcement and policing in this country, and in all countries. So those are political beliefs I have, and they are pretty fundamentally incompatible with Batman if you take him seriously.
Yes.
This has been a theme going on our Batman on Film podcast for a while, but this is the first one we've seen that tries to take Batman seriously on this realistic level.
Yes.
Batman Mask of the Phantasm takes him seriously in a very particular register and does it very well, and that's something Paul Dini and company are generally very good at. Batman Beyond, we just talked about in last week's episode. I think Batman Returns takes him at this level of psychoanalytic myth, which is perfect for Batman. Batman 66, I think uses Batman amazingly for social satire in the perfect way. But now this is like the chips are down moment because we are now in the era of, in the Frank Miller lineage, of using Batman in something that is meant to reflect reality, which means Batman gets inevitably political. So if there's anyone listening to this who's like, why are they having to talk about politics and this kind of shit in my Batman podcast? That's because Chris Nolan is asking us to.
Yeah, it's very specifically for the first 40 minutes, like that first act. It's like it's shoving your face in it. Like that's what the movie sets itself up as being interested in, which it abandons after that first act completely because it realizes, or maybe, I don't know if it realizes it, but it's incompatible with what Batman needs to be Batman.
But if you're wondering why I'm foregrounding this and not the actors or the music or the cinematography, I think it's the most important thing to talk about with this movie, and it's the thing that my thinking about has changed the most over. So I've been talking for a while, Sean. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, so for me, with that and these movies, I have never liked, and I think this is like kind of comes down to like why I've never like been head over heels with this stuff overall in like a lot of Christopher Nolan's movies, is I don't like the approach they take to Batman in these movies of where it is a Batman that cannot exist in the same world as Superman. Is a Batman that cannot fight Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze or Clayface or any of the more sort of like exotic or more extreme villains, because it takes the Batman Year One thing and basically like imagines, what if you have Batman Year One but you can never have a long Halloween? What if you have a Batman who never has supervillains, he only has criminals that he fights, and then those criminals are like a little bit extreme, like the Joker, right? But the Joker doesn't fly. The Joker
in Dark Knight is coded as a terrorist, as an anarchist, as something we have in the real world, not a clown who uses a fucking like poison flower,
or a joy buzzer or whatever. Yes, exactly. It so deeply eschews the comic bookiness of it. And that's where it feels like it has a lot more in common in those ways with the X-Men movies than it does with the Marvel movies that will follow in 2008 with Iron Man, which I do think Batman Begins has a little bit more humor in it that I forgot that I appreciated. This movie does feel slightly more Marvel movie-esque than I think The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises will when we rewatch those. But overall, it's so intensely self-serious about it. It wants so deeply to be taken seriously and to be in this grounded reality that it's you want this Batman to be able to show up in an episode of Law and Order or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's what this character is the way that they're pitching it here. And I fundamentally think that does not work with Batman. I just don't think it's compatible, because if you do that, you then run into the thing that this movie and its sequels are run into face first, which is Batman is bad and dumb and shouldn't be real. Batman is a bad idea. People shouldn't dress up as bats. Rich people shouldn't go around into the streets and beat the shit out of people that they decide are criminals, right? That's not a thing that does anybody any good at all, which is something that any reasonable person would agree with because Batman's ridiculous, because Batman's a fucking comic book character.
Yes.
And it's something where if you remove the pulpy or comic booky edge from Batman, and just look at the other movies we've talked about, from Batman Mask of the Phantasm with the heightened noir, with the Tim Burton movies with, as you say, the heightened mythic kind of quality they approach the character with, where Batman, Tim Burton's Batman movies are somehow set both in the 80s and the 1940s at the same time, because that's what they're ridiculous, right? They're inherently meant to take place in what you register as a reality that is separate from the one that we live in, and that's what's fun about them. Here's the thing with the Christopher Nolan movies. If you back up to our Batman Beyond conversation from the previous episode, one thing I say about that movie and about Batman in general there is the gothic is a fundamental necessary element to Batman as a character, and Batman Begins has little touches of it, very little touches of it. And
it's got some in the production design that will be completely removed with The Dark Knight, which is shot in Chicago, and Dark Knight Rises, which is shot in Pittsburgh, and don't try to disguise those cities.
Yes, and so you got the faintest, what feels like leftovers from a previous production or something that have the fingerprints of the Gothic on Batman Begins, which I think is why it's always been kind of my favorite one of these, is because it is, while it is not comic booky, it is the most comic booky of these three films. It
looks more comic booky than other ones.
Yes, and it's got slightly more humor to it and stuff like that. But Christopher Nolan shaves down and filters out all the Gothic from Batman by the time you get to The Dark Knight. And it's that's just, it's not Batman to me very specifically and personally, so it doesn't register for me in my Batman fan heart as something that I'm interested in seeing. But I think also just the critic in me looks at it and says well, once you've removed the fantasy and the Gothic from Batman, you are left with the most kind of gross vigilante police fantasy you could have. It doesn't even have the pulpiness of Frank Miller. To me it's kind of gross in many ways than a lot of Frank Miller's stuff with Batman. It's specifically Batman Year One, I think, is significantly better than this movie in kind of every regard, because that's a pulpy kind of almost pseudo grindhouse crime fiction is basically what Batman Year One is, which also exists in a heightened reality.
Or even The Dark Knight Returns, which I have problems with the politics of Dark Knight Returns, but it is so heightened. I mean, he fights fucking lizard people in that or something. He fights Superman. That is one where Superman is compatible with Batman. Yes. I don't like their Superman in that comic, but it's there. Chris Nolan does invite us to have these deeper conversations because he wants to ask, what does Batman look like in the real world? And I think that's a question worth asking, but I'm not sure it's a question worth making a movie about if it's going to be a movie with Batman as the protagonist. You know?
Yeah, or you can't, so I don't know if I want to blow this load down, but let's just lay it out. So it's when you talk about Batman Begins and looking at this movie, I'll see, Jonathan, if you agree with me of how I kind of break down this movie in my head as the 3-act structure of it.
Yeah.
Is Act 1 is the first 40 minutes. It's basically, everything from the beginning of the movie to Bruce coming back to Gotham.
Yeah.
That's Act 1. This movie has what I think is a very, very long Act 2, which is basically everything from Bruce coming back into Gotham and setting himself up as Batman all the way through to the moment where Liam Neeson shows up again and burns down Wayne Manor. That's the end of Act 2, right?
Very literally, that's 3-act structure, because the lock-in is him coming back to Gotham. I'm going to become Batman. And then the switch from Act 2 to Act 3 is always the twist, and that is, oh shit, it's Ra's al Ghul.
Yes. The problem with this movie, and I think this is where you run into we can't make a movie about what if Batman's in the real world and like do it well, is because while that is where the plot mechanics have Act 2, nothing about Batman changes. Nothing about Wayne Manor getting burned down causes him to have a revelation. It doesn't like make him realize he has to have some sort of change of heart, change his approach as Batman, make him realize that what he was doing wasn't different in any meaningful way from what the League of Shadows is doing. He's just doing it slower than they are. Nothing of that happens. All he does is he picks himself back up again, and he keeps on doing the same thing. In the same way at the very end of the movie, they're like, well, I'm just going to rebuild the manor the exact same way it was, brick by brick. And then Alfred's like, well, let's just make it slightly better for being Batman. And he's like, yeah, we'll do that too. And that's what the movie ends with. It's like, well, there's no character change at the end of Act 2 because the character change would have to be him realizing being Batman is a bad idea because that's the only way to resolve the story they set themselves to tell.
Yeah, I mean, and this is actually something that the animated series and comics and games have dealt with really well.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have the background story be Batman trains with the literal bad guys, then he has to realize something about himself that was off, right? Like, he can't go, oh, well, good I defeated the bad guys. Let me go out and continue using all of their methods that they taught me.
Yes, all I will do, instead of throwing a shuriken, I'm going to shave it into the shape of a bat, because that's what a reasonable ninja does.
Here is the defining moment of this movie, and maybe the whole trilogy for me. This is at the end of the League of Shadows stuff in Act 1, where Liam Neeson gives him a sword, and Ken Watanabe, who, we'll talk about the racism in this movie, because it's fucking racist.
Yeah, I forgot about about the opening of this movie.
Ken Watanabe deserves better, you motherfuckers. Anyway, but they hand him a sword and say, your final test is you have to kill this man, he's a criminal, he's murdered, you have to do justice and kill him. And this is the moment of choosing for Batman. This is where he's like, okay, no, I'm not going to kill. And that's what it's meant to be in the movie, is like, this is where he draws the line and is different from the League of Shadows, is I'm not going to kill my enemies. But the thing is, the film and Bruce, they disavow condemning a man to death. But they do not disavow condemning a man.
Exactly, yes.
And those are not meaningfully different things. It's what you do with the man afterwards, but... This is why I had to bring up the whole thing of, like, I don't believe in prison. Condemning a man to death is one kind of horrible thing, and I do think it's very fucking bad. But also condemning a man to, you will be in a prison cell for the rest of your natural life until you die, I don't think is that meaningfully different a societal choice.
Yeah.
What you have decided is that this person's life is beyond redemption, is beyond saving, is beyond humanity, is beyond human rights. That is the choice. And Batman fundamentally has the same worldview as the League of Shadows. He has the same worldview of criminals, that they are lesser, that they are different. He has the same view that you have to somehow take them out and remove them from society.
Yeah, that there are good people in Gotham that he has to go save from all the bad people that are in Gotham.
Yes. Now, the League of Shadows believes you have to kill the bad people to get rid of them. Bruce says we'll throw them in prison. But the idea is still in both ways. What do you do to get rid of the bad people? Not... I don't know, donate a bunch of money and make a shelter or something. Or like, I mean, one of the biggest things to me in this movie is that the train is like this giant metaphor in the movie, and Bruce destroys it at the end. Like, he tears down his parents' legacy. Like, he doesn't come back into Gotham and say, here's $100 million to rebuild the train, which he could do and be Batman.
Yeah.
He does nothing and he destroys the train. I mean, now I'm mixing a lot of points here, but, like,
yeah.
I do want to go back to that moment of, like, choosing not to kill the man, which then results in him killing all the people in the League of Shadows in the movie. All three of these movies have a really bad relationship with the Batman doesn't kill people but thing, and we'll talk about that later. I have come around to the position that I am more comfortable with stories that just have Batman kill people than stories that pretend he doesn't but still have him do it.
Yes.
So
you have to commit, and, like, so this is the thing where I think this is one of the reasons why and I know you basically agree with me, like, why we've always preferred stuff like the take in the animated series. A take of why you need a Robin and stuff like that is an older, more experienced Batman who has the Bat family, and he's helped shelter, like, these other kids and, like, help give them a home and train them to help, like, work through their own trauma and grief and stuff like that. It's a really compelling version of the character of Batman because, and this is the version that the animated series, and especially when you get to, like, Justice League and stuff, when that character grows and becomes more experienced, it's a version of the character who has like a hope and faith in humanity that drives him like to do the things that he does, and that he tries to actively help people. He tries to stop people who are trying, like Joker's trying to murder a bunch of people. He'll stop the Joker. But like the reason why Batman never kills Joker shouldn't be in a hero sense. You can tell stories where Batman is deeply flawed if that's the story you're telling. If you want him to be a heroic character that you're believing in that way, the reason why he doesn't kill Joker is because he hasn't given up hope or faith that there's a way that Joker can become a better person, and that can like turn that around, and that if you kill him, it's over, and there's never a chance for that like redemption to happen, right? And
Yes.
and a Batman who can shelter someone and like use his cape not just as like a thing that helps him fly, but like to shelter someone from the cold and embrace them. That's like a Batman that I really love, and to me like that is the Batman character as a heroic figure. You don't have to again tell stories that are entirely about Batman being heroic. You can tell stories that are critical of Batman as a character and as an entity, and that can be fascinating too. But Batman Begins doesn't do that. Batman Begins stumbles on the material that would allow it to do that, but it doesn't tell that story.
No, and one thing we'll see in this whole trilogy is Batman is always right in these movies.
Yeah.
This is something Nolan is never able to get past. He often, and he does it in this movie, he does it in the other ones, he gestures at the complexities of Batman in the like tragic hero sense, but then Batman is always proven right.
Yeah.
Like Morgan Freeman is allowed to complain about the fucking Patriot Act network that Batman makes in film 2, but without it, he would never catch the Joker. And okay, Batman was right in the end anyway.
Exactly. It's the Jack Bauer thing. It's like, I gotta get my hands dirty, Mr. President. No one else is gonna do it. Like, I'll put the sins on my back.
Michael Caine says a lot of the most logical things in this trilogy over and over again. But Alfred is positioned as like the voice of wisdom, but he's never right. Because if Alfred was right at the beginning of Dark Knight Rises, Gotham would have been nuked. So like there's all these things where the plot like bends over backwards to make Batman right, which is also the 24 syndrome. Jack Bauer is never wrong.
Yeah, and contrast this with the movie we just talked about, Batman Beyond, on the previous episode.
Yeah.
Where Bruce Wayne is like very definitively extremely wrong with how he treats Terry in the first half of that movie. And he has to realize that he's wrong. And that's where his character growth comes in that movie, is that he doesn't see that his hang-ups about the Joker don't have to be Terry's hang-ups about the Joker.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the master stroke of the animated series and all of its different sort of arms for us, I think, Sean, is that they're able to do both the heroic Batman you're talking about and the self-critical Batman. They're able to do all of it, where I think a lot of others are able to maybe do one or the other. That, like, mythos gets all of it together, and that's the brilliant thing about it. And yeah, I don't think Batman Begins, I will hold all my judgment, but in my memory, the other two aren't really able to do either side of that equation particularly well.
No, and I've never felt that way about any of these movies, so I don't think my opinions will change on rewatching Dark Knight.
Holding on some of the like ideology stuff, I have pretty extensive notes I took here, and a lot of this stuff is so here's one. When he meets Liam Neeson, who we find out is Ra's al Ghul, but they call him Ra's al Ghul, but also he's white, which makes no sense. He has this line: criminals thrive on the indulgences of society's understanding. Now, I know the bad guy says that. It is the guy who is eventually revealed to be the villain. But in that moment, he's the mentor. And Bruce does live by that. Like, that is the view of the movie. Again, the difference between him and the League of Shadows is, do you kill these people or do you lock them up and never let them see the light of day again? The difference is not this point. Criminals thrive on the indulgences of society's understanding. The idea that Batman is there to make up for the lack of law enforcement, not like the lack of all these other things. Like, that is the vision of this movie, is there's not enough law enforcement, the police are too corrupt, there's not enough people out there cracking heads.
We need more good people to go out there and put the bad people behind bars, or to break their bones or whatever, to make them unable to be bad and do bad things.
Yes, exactly. And when and what this connects to politically very much, I think, is like, this movie very much encapsulates the logic of like American crime hysteria in the 1990s. When there really was quite a crime wave that was very bad and needed solving in some way. But the way we chose to solve it was basically Batman logic. Was
Yes.
reactionary. We hired there's that famous clip now of Bill Clinton at the State of the Union saying we've hired 100,000 cops or something, and both sides of the aisle give a standing ovation. And we had the crime bill that pretty much everyone who was involved in it now wants to repeal. With all the mandatory minimums and stuff. And this crackdown that led to the modern state of mass incarceration in the United States, where the United States locks up more people per capita than any other country on Earth, and it's not particularly close.
Yes, and more than the population of many countries on Earth.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And so the whole trilogy, and this movie especially, takes as its starting point that crime is the ultimate problem, and criminals, by extension, too, up and down the scale. And thus, Batman, while not perfect, because the movies do point out his character flaws, although he's usually right, is logical. Batman is a logical reaction to all of this, right? The point of this is we want to make you believe. It's like Superman, the movie 1978. You'll believe a man can fly. The whole pitch of Batman Begins was you'll believe a man will put on a cowl and go fight crime. And it takes that very seriously, but it is that same logic, as I said, of 90s crime bills. There's a criminal mind that's under interrogation, not the systems or circumstances that breed criminal behavior or criminality as we societally deem it. It always others criminals. Like Batman has this line where he says, where there's a montage of him he steals an apple and he helps with the theft, and he says, "I did, but I never became one of them."
Yeah, because there you get the shot of the thing that he was stealing was actually from Wayne Enterprises, which means he owned it, so he's not one of those thieves. It's okay. Yeah. We can't have this character be morally, quote unquote, morally compromised, even though that wouldn't be a moral compromise.
Yeah.
But from his own judgment, actually morally compromised himself.
Yes. So that's sort of the film's worldview, and I'm just deeply uncomfortable with it. And it does, I agree with you that the movie kind of makes a break where it has to stop thinking about these things.
Yeah.
But it is the starting point, and I do think it is, it does feel to me like something the people who made this movie just kind of think about the world, because it's very seriously how the movie operates. There's this whole thread through this movie, and then it gets even bigger in The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, about symbols and symbolism, and the idea that people need dramatic examples to shake themselves out of apathy is a line in this movie, right? And there's a lot about that in these movies, and one of the lines Bruce has is or I think it's Liam Neeson or Bruce Wayne, one of the two have this line about bad things happen when good people do nothing, and there's all stuff about the people of Gotham, the good people doing nothing, and I'm against what? Against organized crime?
Yeah.
Katie Holmes. No, it's Katie Holmes has that line about fucking Falcone. I was what are normal people supposed to do against Al Capone?
Yeah.
That's not the problem. The problem was fucking prohibition and all this other shit, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing here. It's we're misidentifying the source of the trauma. It's not that there's an individual criminal that just, if enough people stood up and said, "Hey, stop doing that, Falcone," he'd be all right, I'll stop. It's that there's systems that allow Falcone to exist, and that society needs a Falcone to fit in these rungs of the ladder of economic progress. So it's all of that kind of stuff that just really makes me uncomfortable in the movie's, I think, view of what Batman is there to do.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's really highlighted in that first act. It's really highlighted because the movie has lines of dialogue where characters talk about, and it's Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, it's Rachel, and then actually Ra's al Ghul has some in the last, or the Wayne Manor scene where you find out that somehow they are the group, the League of Shadows, created the economic conditions of the Depression that led to his parents getting shot, which is that's way overriding this. That's a lot. What are you saying with that?
There's this whole thread in this movie about this economic depression that I have gone in circles trying to figure out the plot logic of, because apparently there was an economic depression that led to a lot of crime. Hey, movie, you almost got the point, but you didn't. That leads to his parents getting killed, and then apparently other rich people were moved into action and stopped the depression. But when Batman gets back to Gotham, there's literal shanty towns that look like the favelas in Rio de Janeiro in Gotham, and then people are the depression never really stopped, but it's the movie is making it up as it goes along.
Yes.
It's really all over the place.
And then at some point there was a the economic depression Gotham, which was bad for some reason, bad enough to cause the League of Shadows to want to destroy it like they destroyed Rome. and so on and so forth. Other great civilizations, they burned London, blah, 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 blah. And the way they chose to do that was through economic means. But, like, what was that Gotham like if your whole thing is the criminal Batman thing and you're the ones who made the criminals by doing the economic, like, what are you even talking about? Like, and that's where I mean, like, I think the movie just, like, sort of is stumbling drunkenly around after it sets up its ideas. I think, like, there are people, whether it's like David Goyer who wrote the fucking screenplay or whoever, like there are people involved in the production that seem to have some consciousness of at least the language around why crime surges happen, about why people turn to crime. It has lines of dialogue in the first 40 minutes where people are presenting that, and it seems to kind of pseudo understand that. And then it presents this whole League of Shadows, which is Batman made more monstrous by this whole organization that seeks to solve those problems just by mass execution. Batman is faced with that, or Bruce Wayne, before he's Batman, is faced with that, chooses this is not the path I want to walk. It puts an end to it, returns to Gotham, and then he just becomes Batman, which is the exact same thing. And at that point, it becomes a different story. Like, it just becomes a different movie than that first 40 minutes. It's just like, and now we're just going to do Batman shit for like a second act that is really, really long. That is a whole other Batman movie we just stuffed in here because we wanted to have the cool, grounded opening sequence.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, the moment with the fucking... That's why I identify that moment where he doesn't kill the criminal as like the crux point, because either you kind of get it there and make a break and this somehow just isn't a Batman movie and he goes back and, I don't know, starts the world's greatest charity or something. He just goes around giving homeless people money, something like that, which he could, it's one way to do it. I don't think it's the best way society should be organized, but it could work.
It'll help some people.
It'll help some people, sure.
It'll help people more than going around and punching other people in the face.
Yes. Or you can try to square this circle that is unsquare circleable of, I won't kill the guy, but I'll still condemn him, and therefore I'm better, and that's something.
I mean, his big line that I think like defines this movie's worldview of Batman, and I kind of forgot how much all the stuff I hate about the way Man of Steel treats Superman is just exactly this movie treats Batman.
Because it's David S. Goyer. David S. Goyer is a fucking idiot, and if you look at his other stuff, he's a bat. Like, this is, I think, elevated by Christopher Nolan being a better filmmaker and stuff, and I think Man of Steel is papered over by Zack Snyder being an impressive visual stylist, but, like, David S. Goyer is a bad writer, and he does not write 2 or 3, and, like, Dark Knight is definitely better for him not being involved.
Yeah, but the line he has at the end of the movie to Liam Neeson is, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you, which is the exact bullshit that like Pa Kent tells Superman basically in Man of Steel. And it's like, that's just like, well, then what are you? Like it's such a like nihilistic nothing viewpoint. Then what are you, Batman? What are you doing? Yeah. Like, I'm not saving people, or I'm not killing people, but I'm not saving them either. Well, then you're doing nothing, you rich asshole. Like, it's such a weird statement of like, to be your big line that defines the hero at the end of the climax that he gives to the villain is a statement of nothing, is a statement of no action, of no ideology, of no heroism, of nothing. It's just, I can just watch by and like set you on the path to you dying, and then just watch by as it happens, and I don't have to care. It's like, what a great heroic statement you have just made, Batman.
So let's talk about the Batman doesn't kill part of this.
Yeah.
Because you said that line, I looked at my notes, Sean, and I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. Is this the apotheosis of stupid Batman doesn't kill logic?
Yeah.
That's what I wrote in my notes. And it is.
It is.
Because he kills him.
Yes.
If you throw someone on a moving train and lock them, and you're going to blow up the train, and you've locked them in there, and then you leave, you have killed them.
Yeah, it is like the most ridiculous incarnation of the trolley problem you could ever come up with. It's not like you come across a trolley and like, it's going to hit 3 people tied up on the trolley, but if you divert it, it'll only hit 1 tied up on this other track. It's like, no, you're on the trolley, and you have Liam Neeson, you beat the shit out of him, and you set it on a path to go blow up. It's like, do you leave him to die, or you don't go save him? It's like, I leave him to die. I think you're morally compromised in that situation.
It's like the trolley problem. If you put Liam Neeson on the track, exactly. There's another track with no Liam Neeson, and you say...
And there's somebody over there that's about to pull the lever, and you beat the shit out of them to stop them doing it. Yeah,
exactly. It's so fucked up. It makes me think there's this episode of the sitcom The Good Place where they're doing the trolley problem, and Michael, the like angel who can manipulate things, misunderstands it and thinks it's how do we kill all 4 of them. And it's very funny. But that's what it makes me think of. Because also on the other side of the movie, when there's the whole scene where he fights the League of Shadows, one, he burns the entire place down, and we never see those people again. I assume he killed 50 people.
I mean, he definitively states later in the movie that Ra's al Ghul is dead. And I think that's true. I think the Ken Watanabe character and all those other people die in that building.
Because that's what I was going to say. It's just other people, but Ken Watanabe we actually see die.
Yes.
Because he gets... Batman is fighting him, he gets stuck under like a wooden beam, and we see his like head roll over and his eyes go back.
Yeah.
So, and he totally kills Ken Watanabe. Like, that's just, to me, like, fairly unambiguous, like, in what happens there. He kills Ken Watanabe, which you should never do, because Ken Watanabe is great. But either way, it does put his whole not killing people thing to a certain hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole movie, this movie operates on the exact same fucking logic of the Arkham games, which I can kind of forgive in Arkham because they're games. But in a movie, I'm sorry, you can't go by the logic of... The fucking tank is going over rooftops, and I'm just plowing police cars, and as Batman, I'm like throwing people downstairs, and I'm punching them so hard they would have a fucking internal hemorrhage, and like, but no, I don't kill people, because I don't use a gun. Again, in the Arkham games, I'm sort of okay, because video games have always operated on a certain logic around life and death that is different, and whatever. Those are very gamey games. But in this movie, no, like, you just can't do that, and like... You know, like, I have problems with Batman v Superman. I have lots of problems with Batman v Superman. But one thing I did slightly respect about it more when I recently rewatched it, specifically the longer director's cut, is Batman just fucking kills people in that movie, and they don't then have him go say, I don't kill people, Superman. He just does it. And it's like, okay, at least that's honest. And, like, that is a version of Batman. It's not my favorite version of Batman, but I do kind of prefer that to... the hypocrite who goes around saying that killing is bad while murdering people left and right.
Yeah, I mean, it's this thing where you run into this problem if you want to do super realistic Batman, where in the real world Batman would murder people.
Yes.
But you can't just have him blatantly go, especially when he's the main character. Batman v Superman can kind of get away with it because it's also a Superman movie. Here, you can't have Batman just shooting people and slitting their throats and fucking setting them on fire and whatever. But you still can't quite find a way to justify having him not kill Liam Neeson at the end of this movie. So what do? You sort of have him basically kill him, but just removed enough that he can tell himself he can sleep at night or something. That I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you is just a way to have Batman kill people without killing people.
The Dark Knight is better about this because the Dark Knight's entire plot is predicated on this idea. It's the only live-action Batman movie that really tries to grapple with the killing versus not killing thing. Because the Joker's whole thing is he realizes Batman won't kill him, and so he tries to set up... Like, that's why I think the Dark Knight is actually thematically somewhat smart, and we'll see if I still agree with this, in that the Joker's whole thing with Two-Face is that he creates a situation by which Batman is forced to kill. And that is how the movie ends, and it's why it's a kind of dark ending. But, like, that movie at least is thinking about it and doesn't have all this stuff where Batman is killing people and saying he's not. Yeah. But it's also a little bit diluted by Batman Begins being the movie that does canonically happen to hit before it, you know? Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to talk about. This movie doesn't really interrogate the notion of a single rich family and their company being the only hope for a city, the entire central hub of all progress. I think it thinks that's a good thing. It very much like when he's on the train with his parents in one of the flashbacks, and they're like, Wayne Tower is becoming the center of this entire city. And I'm thinking, that's dystopia. That's a literal dystopia you are describing.
Yes, we are now Amazon Town, is basically what he's saying.
Yeah, like, which means that, like, it would all hinge on the fortunes of this one family and their company. But it views that as, like, the ideal. And I think that's the other thing about this movie, is that there's no sort of other way out through it that doesn't run into some weird conservative roadblock for me, which is that, okay, well, let's say Batman did make the right choice, and this isn't Batman Begins, this is Batman doesn't become Batman. And he comes back to the city, and maybe he redoubles his efforts with, like philanthropy and stuff. Well, then you're building a weird world where it's just, I guess it's a peon ship where, like, there's one rich family who, through benevolence, gives things to other people. But, like, and it's just, it's so weird because, on the one hand, that is still better than what Batman does. Like, Bruce Wayne, there's a line at the end where Michael Caine is like, your dad would be so proud of you. And I'm like, I don't think so. Because his dad worked in a hospital with poor people and built a train connecting the whole city that people could ride for free, which among rich people things is pretty good to do.
Yeah.
It's still not my preferred way to run a society, but it's a pretty good way to spend your money. Bruce Wayne doesn't do any of that. He destroys the fucking train and no one calls him on it. And there's no train in movies 2 and 3 because they're in different cities. But, like, that's the kind of stuff also where it's just like, and maybe you might say we're taking this movie too seriously, but the movie asks us to take it seriously, and it's just, you keep running into these roadblocks where, like, what vision of a better world does it want to see? And I don't know. And
this, again, this is, like, specifically, it is the first act. It's the first 40 minutes is, like, really specifically asking you to focus on this. It is putting all those questions directly in front of you. You know, there's a lot of ways in which they really kind of let Bruce Wayne off easy, or they get to elide certain things. So it's like, I think about in that first act, you have the whole sequence where he goes to the trial for Joe Chill, or like whatever, of whether or not he'll be able to go free. And then he brings the gun with him. I've always like remembered that sequence, at least like that idea of being like, that's an interesting thing to show. I've never seen that in another Batman origin, of him there like getting ready to shoot the man who killed his parents. But having like an assassin for the mob shoot Joe Chill instead is such a bad out. It like is just this way for the writer to avoid having to actually deal with, either you have Bruce Wayne actively try to shoot Joe Chill there. I don't think you would ever have him actually shoot him, but like try to shoot him and get restrained or stopped before he could, or have him chicken out and back off and have that be the thing. But having it just like there and then having someone else make that choice is so weak a storytelling decision that I think sort of like presages a lot of where the movie is going to go, of like not being able to commit to making actually a hard choice with how you're going to represent this character, and have this weird wishy-washy, we want Batman to be brutal and gritty, but we also can't have Batman be bad in any way.
So I have a couple, that Joe Chill scene on one hand just also is like kind of horrifying to me, because it very clearly views him getting out of prison as like a terrible, horrible thing that makes Gotham corrupt, which
because it feels like it's really great that somebody else shot him. Like that feels like what the movie feels. Is not that like it's like awful that someone just like ran up into the street and shot this man dead who was about to, you know, get out of jail for this hearing or whatever, who had served in prison for like 10 years. It's that it's really great that somebody shot him so that Bruce Wayne wouldn't have to. So Bruce Wayne doesn't have to dirty his hands too much.
Or that, like, because society was clearly so wrong to let him out again. Once a criminal, always... There is no rehabilitation in this world.
Yeah.
There's no possibility of it. Because what I would see there is, like, this seems like a responsible legal system. Joe Chill has been in prison for 15 years. He's clearly remorseful. He's clearly changed. And he is giving them information on the city's biggest crime boss. That's how the legal system probably should work. Like, right?
That's better than just fucking throwing him away and locking the key or killing him.
Yeah. But, yeah, the movie clearly doesn't say that. But this all connects to this line Rachel Dawes, who we'll talk about in a little bit, has, that is like the key line of the movie. It's not who you are underneath, it's what you do that defines you.
It's not who you are that's underneath, it's what you do that defines you.
It's what I do that defines... He always, like, elongates that do. But anyway.
Bruce?
Yeah. So, that line is stupid and cheesy. But it also, like, is the movie realizing its own fucking problem in real time and not being able to justify it. Because it's introduced when he doesn't kill Joe Chill, but only because someone else does it. And he's in the car with Katie Holmes and says, I'm mad, Rachel, because they took my revenge and now I'll never have it. And he shows her the gun and then she slaps him. And she has that line, right? And then later on he says it again and it's like, you've grown, Bruce. And it's like, but has he? Because what he was going to do there, what she was condemning him for, was I'm going to go kill Joe Chill. And then at the end of the movie, when he's like what defines him now is you dress like a bat and beat the shit out of poor people and criminals who you are condemning without due process. What is meaningfully the difference?
Yeah, or, I mean, just think about it this way, Jonathan. What if you moved that line somewhere else and you had at the end of the movie, Liam Neeson's on the train and he leans up to him and it's like,
it's not who I am inside. It's what I do that defines me. I don't have to save you.
I'm not going to kill you. And then he flies away, right? Like, if you put that right next to each other, it's like, what are you doing, Batman? Like, that's part of the fight. It's like, you're not doing anything heroic in this movie at all. You just left, you're the villain to die in the train you set him on to blow up. Like, you didn't save anything. You didn't do anything heroic.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. If you just put those two lines together, what I do that defines me, and now I'm going to let you die.
Yes.
Yeah, it's stupid. Anyway, okay, we've talked about kind of the ideology of this movie a lot. Let's talk about some of the, I guess, characters and that kind of thing. We'll save some more cinematic aspects for later.
Yeah.
But let's just go with Batman, because we've talked around it a lot.
Yeah.
It's a hard conversation to have, but what do you think of this movie's like Bruce Wayne, Batman / the Christian Bale of it all?
I think it's fine. You know, I think it's like Christian Bale is good, but like it's not like an inspirational or like fascinating performance to me.
Yeah.
It's like a lot better than Val Kilmer or George Clooney. It's not as interesting as Michael Keaton. It's certainly not as interesting as Adam West or Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not bad. It's just not remarkable to me in any way.
I think Christian Bale is great in this first movie. I think his stuff as Bruce Wayne in the first act is just good acting from a guy who's clearly like hungry to give a good performance. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have to separate it for me from like, I don't love this incarnation of Batman / Bruce Wayne. I do think he's very good. He's really engaged in this movie. Like, he is going for it for a good performance. There is, and I think this about the second and third movie too, that he is calculating, he is thinking, he is putting himself fully into this performance. There's no slumming it here. This is not George Clooney being like, what the hell did I get myself into? It's really good acting work. I really do think that.
I would agree that it's really good acting work. I just don't think it's an interesting character.
That's my point, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think the acting always kind of papers over or outstrips the writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was interested to see in this movie, in the cowl and in the costume, his stupid Batman voice is much less pronounced in this movie.
It's so much better in this movie.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm like most dreading in many ways about watching the next two is like, it's fine. Like, he does a slightly gravelier version of his normal voice, and it's like, it works totally well.
Yeah, I actually like it in this one. I was surprised to go back to it because I remembered it being exactly like The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, but it's not. It's Christian Bale with a slightly gravelier voice, but you can tell it's him. It's very much it's gravelier than what Michael Keaton does, but it's in the Michael Keaton legacy of slightly deeper, different voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fine. And honestly, in some moments, I think it works pretty well when he's like going for it. I mean, he's literally torturing the guy, and we'll get into the whole conversation next time with how these movies just stand for different Bush-era policies, which I really don't like. But the moment where he's like, swear to me, like that whole thing, it's the part of me that, like, the animal part of me that enjoys some Frank Miller things also thinks that works.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, I'll just say this because, we've been very harsh on the movie so far, and I'll say that, like, there's a lot of Batman shit in Act 2 that I just enjoy. Like,
yes.
I just enjoy the process of seeing him start about the process of becoming Batman and like getting all the materials and going and like recruiting Gordon and like the scene, like when I think about him in this movie being like, this is a good performance as Batman. It's like not amazing. It's not like inspiring or something. It's not this incredible performance, but it's like a solid like version of Batman in the second act that I don't think we ever really get again in the other movies. Is like the scene where he saves Rachel Dawes from being assassinated by like the mob hitman, and then she turns around and he's like perched on the railing or whatever, and he kind of recruits her also and gives her that evidence and kind of talks her into, here's like me setting about my plan for how to like change what's happening in Gotham. And I think all that stuff, if it's removed from the like expectations they set up from that first act that are too heavy, too politically focused, and are not something that this can follow up on by doing a Batman Year One thing. Like, if you just had that second act as here's like our movie version of Batman Year One, it's like pretty fun Batman stuff, and he does a good job, and it's a good looking costume, and it's like, and it's when they shoot him as like kind of this horror monster in the stealthy sequences and stuff. It's like that works really well. It's just some good fucking early Batman shit. It's just surrounded by a story that doesn't know what to do with any of that material.
No, I agree 100%. I think all the minutia of like how he puts together all the origin stuff, the Santa Claus is coming to town, Rankin Bass special version of Batman, where like here's where he got the Batarangs, and here's where he got the Batmobile, and here's where he gets the Batcave, and all of that stuff I think is really good.
Yeah, and him like as he's going through encountering different problems, and then going to Lucius to be like, oh, I've got now like I need this, and like that whole back and forth. It's like, for the overall structure of the whole movie, it goes on for way too long. But as a thing unto itself, as like a Batman thing, it's really enjoyable.
I also think this movie is better than either of The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises at using like the sort of iconic figure of Batman visually. Like the way, as you say, it has him like crouched like on the perch when he's talking to Rachel. When he does that with Gordon too, outside of Gordon's apartment. I really like that scene. Some of the scenes where he's like standing on a building and the camera goes around. They do that in the other two movies too, but by that point he's wearing fucking body armor and it doesn't look like the bat suit. I actually like how the bat suit looks in this movie. It's
me too.
It's still got this problem with the head a little bit, but like.
But most of the movie is shot in a way where that's not a problem. That's where like when he's shot like a horror villain and stuff like that, and he's just like appearing and disappearing, it doesn't matter that his head is super stiff because he's just in one pose. It's when you have to do the hand-to-hand stuff that it falls apart.
Right. But yeah, I think that intro of Batman at the docks where Falcone is there and he keeps picking people off, that's just a really well done scene.
Yeah.
It's very well made.
It is though like really awful payoff for the Falcone scene in the first 40 minutes where I had forgotten that whole sequence where Bruce Wayne walks in and has the conversation with Falcone and Falcone's like, you people like you can't deal with people like me. There's no payoff to that scene, and that feels really bizarre. That like he just sort of takes care of Falcone, and it's like an afterthought to the whole plot of the movie.
Also, why would Falcone go to prison from that? He was brutalized by Batman and tied to a light. He would, the ACLU would be all over him. I mean, for fuck's sake.
He was not directly implicated in any actual crime that was being committed. He was just like in the vicinity. Yeah.
He was assaulted. I mean, like that's the problem with vigilante justice in this case. You know, it's why Superman usually gently picks people up and puts them back down, doesn't beat the shit out of them and then throw them like a football at the police station. Anyway.
Maybe he'd be more effective if he did.
Yeah, if Zack Snyder ever makes another Superman, I'm sure we'll get that. But yeah, so I like all of that stuff. I like the other characters. I mean, everyone loves Michael Caine as Alfred. It's good Alfred.
And I think this is the best. Like, that's where I had forgotten that this movie can be legitimately quite funny. Like, particularly with how they use him. He has that line when the manor is burning down and he runs in and Bruce is trapped under like a log or whatever. And he's like, what's the point of all those push-ups if you can't push off a bloody log? And Christian Bale kind of rolls his eyes like, okay, yeah. It's like that stuff, like the dynamic between them is so fun in this movie. And I really like that a lot.
He's just, it's Michael Caine. You'll never say no to watching Michael Caine. He and Christian Bale, and this is true in all three movies, have really good chemistry.
Yeah.
Less true in the third one because he leaves after the first act for some fucking reason and then doesn't come back again. But yeah, it's they have fun chemistry. It's good. And I think all the scenes where they're working together to like do this and Alfred is sort of bemused by the silliness of all this. Mm-hmm. Like I love the whole thing about like how they get the cowl together. It's like we order this piece of graphite from here and then we put the tips on ourselves here, but we'll have to order 10,000 of each.
Yeah, and like there's a levity to the writing there where Batman looks up and says, well, at least we'll have some spare parts. And it's like that's where I was like, this is written, that second act is written a lot more like a Marvel movie than I remember.
Yeah, I don't think all the silly lines pay off. Like there's one, Liam Neeson has the line near the end where he says, now if you excuse me, I have a city to destroy. That 100% feels like the placeholder line you put in before you put in the real line. Uh-huh. Stuff like that doesn't always work. But yeah, I think especially if it's coming from Michael Caine or Morgan Freeman, who's also very funny in this, it totally works. And Lucius Fox in all three of these is great. He is. I'm so glad that, like, because Lucius is obviously a character in the comics at various points as he's on the show, but these movies brought Lucius Fox more into, like, the mainstream.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for these movies, like, he wouldn't be in the Arkham games and stuff like that.
No, and he's great. It's such a cool character having kind of a Q for Batman, like from James Bond, but it's Q if he's like very bemused with Bond and is kind of slyly pretending not to know what he's doing.
Yeah,
it's great. I love all of that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's and that just whole second act of the movie is just where it just feels like I'm watching like some really good Batman shit, and I really like Batman shit.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the reasons why this movie is fondly remembered when it is I think people are thinking of that stuff. You know, the actual like Batman beginning stuff is very good. Yeah. And it is competently done. And it is made with a seriousness and like a skillfulness of acting and writing and directing all of that we hadn't really seen up to now. All of that stuff. It's very fun. So okay, we talked about Chris Nolan, or not Chris Nolan, we talked about Christian Bale. We just said we like Michael Caine. We love Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman's great in this. What other characters do we have to talk about?
Do you want to talk about Rachel?
No, but let's do it.
Yeah.
This is a bigger conversation than this one episode, but sure. Because it's gonna leak into The Dark Knight, where she's handled better in The Dark Knight. No doubt about it, because Maggie Gyllenhaal, if nothing else, is a better actress. But, like, yeah, I mean, I get what they're going for. it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's a thing where I had a realization like an hour into watching the movie last night that if it was like Rick Dawes and it was played by a male actor, there would be no hint. There'd be nothing you could detect in the movie at all, other than the fact that they kiss inexplicably at the end, that there's supposed to be a romantic relationship between these two characters.
That's true.
It is entirely because of the heteronormativity of Hollywood, and that it's a dude and a lady, and they're both like in their like mid to late 20s, that you just assume they're supposed to be a romantic pair. There's nothing else. There's no romantic chemistry. There's nothing in the writing. There's nothing in the performances. There's just nothing in the movie that can ever like hint or convince you in any way there's supposed to be a romantic connection between these two characters at all.
The only thing is that they grew up together, and actual science... I don't remember where I was reading this, but actual science tells us that one of the reasons why, like, incest is a taboo in most cultures is because it's growing up with someone that makes you not want to fuck them, not the just, like, we have some kind of, like, sixth sense for family members.
Yeah, it's not that we like can somehow detect other people's genes being similar and like our bodies are like, well, this could has a higher chance of having a genetic mutation in any offspring.
Yeah, no. It's like the reason why you think about like not fucking your sibling is because you knew them as a baby. Like that's the thing. And it's like, so I actually it's not really a good reason for why they would want to fuck each other, because apparently they were like brother and sister.
Yeah, I mean, they've never... Apparently, Christian Bale and David Goyer have never watched any anime, so they don't know that the childhood friend romance never works out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. They really needed to do this as a harem anime. Exactly. Have the new girl who like you think is the bad option, but really she's the good one.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just Catwoman.
Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, sorry about that weird incest tangent. But something...
You know, it's just on your mind all the time. We know.
You know, Game of Thrones really changed the world in that way.
Yeah. But yeah, Rachel is just a character that doesn't work. Like, it's the most there has to be a romantic interest in this movie, come hell or high water character you have ever seen in a film. Yeah.
I think that is a great point, though, the Rick Dawes of it. Like, yeah, it's like they have a kiss at the end of the movie because you have to have a kiss at the end of the movie. But there's no reason. There's no logic to it. And the character is purely there, I guess, as your sort of voice of moral reason. But kind of. And also, she's not enough of a contrast for Batman because she's just part of, like, the American legal system that kind of agrees with all of this.
Yeah, and again, Batman doesn't change at the end of the second act. So it's like there's no role for a voice of moral reason because he's not convinced to do anything different.
No, he just does what he does, and it's fundamentally in keeping with what she does because she's a prosecutor. So how the people get on her desk isn't really her concern.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I feel like you don't even have to have like the real world politics here to see the weakness of a story structure for this, right? So yeah, and Katie Holmes, I don't want to be mean. She is the least compelling presence in this movie.
Yeah, I think like if it wasn't for the fact that this is a movie that you have Christian Bale, Gary Oldman, Michael Caine, and Morgan Freeman in, like that's such a fucking studded ass cast. Yeah, and Liam Neeson. I mean, fucking Rutger Hauer's, and you know, it's
Ken Watanabe.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous cast, and it's like she's not terrible, she's fine, but it's not like, and she's given nothing. You know, it's just like just a nothing kind of character with like a very kind of awkward performance that has a couple of very bad line reads. There's some of those line reads that I'm like, oof. Yeah. That's like, and that's not on her. Like, Christopher Nolan. Yell cut is like you need another take of that line because come on.
Yes, exactly. You know, that's one of the reasons why, Maggie Gyllenhaal in film 2 fits in so much better because Maggie Gyllenhaal is an actor on that caliber.
Yes, yeah.
So she's not really quite out of place. Again, I don't want to be mean to Katie Holmes. I don't know her, but it is, it doesn't really work. It's somehow I know Rachel Dawes is in this movie every time I watch it, and I also forget because it's just not really a character.
Yep.
We do, of course, get the classic moment though where Batman goes, "Rachel!" in the Batmobile on the way back, which is
and it's just like, why do you care about this person that much again, Batman? Like, what's your relationship to this lady?
Yeah.
Like, it's like I knew you once, and I gave you a arrowhead I found as a present. That's a weird. Like, why an arrowhead? Like, what?
And if you're gonna do that, why doesn't he make like a bat arrow out of it and kill Liam Neeson with it at the end?
It's just one of the, last episode we talked about Batman Beyond and how tight and perfect that movie is, and this like nothing is wasted. What a waste! Like, what a just useless things. Like, it just feels like nobody could come up with anything good. So they're like, hey, an arrowhead. Like, okay, fine. Like, Is there anything Native American imagery? Is there like something you're pulling? Is that where Gotham is? Like a noted Native American landmark or something? Like, why an arrowhead on the Wayne Manor?
In the sequel, they're going to have to deal with Wayne Manor being built on a Native American burial ground, and it's a poltergeist sequel.
Batman meets the poltergeist.
Yes, I'd watch that.
That does actually sound pretty good.
Pretty good.
That's a good DC animated movie, original movie crew. Give us a call.
Warner Brothers owns Poltergeist.
Yes.
We should do this. No. Yeah. So another character we haven't talked about yet is Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon.
Yes.
He
or
is great.
Sergeant Gordon and then Lieutenant Gordon by the end of the movie. There's no Commissioner Gordon.
He's fucking great. Yes. He's one of my favorite versions of Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, it's really, really perfect casting for that character. And Gary Oldman nails it. Like, there's not, he's a supporting character, doesn't have like a huge, massive role. But every time he's on screen, it's like he carries the weight that James Gordon needs to carry.
Absolutely. He's good. He's good in the sequels too. He's got some really stupid shit in the third film, but it's not Gary Oldman's fault.
But everybody does.
Yeah, everyone loses their goddamn mind in that third film. I do think there's this weird moment early on where Gordon, his partner, is a dirty cop who Batman tortures at one point.
Yeah.
And the cop comes back, he goes to get a hot dog and then comes back into the police car and offers Gordon some of the dirty money, and Gordon says no. And he is like, do we have to worry about you? And Gordon says, hey, I'm no rat. And I just think to myself, what good are Gordon's values if he doesn't like act on them? Like, it is a little bit like, mostly I actually think Gordon is in the right zone in these three movies of like, I don't love the like whole myth of the good cop, but like, because the system determines whether cops get to be good or bad. But he is someone who's trying to do good in his community and is relatively straightforward in these movies. But that moment did well, why? Like, I mean, I know he doesn't want to get killed, but like...
Yeah, that scene, like, is weird because it's just like, maybe I don't know enough about, like, actual dirty cops, but it feels like you wouldn't have... Like, it feels like the dirty cop is right. Like, it's kind of weird that you're just with me on this stop where I'm getting dirty money and you're, like, not involved in that process at all. Like, that's, like, weird. That feels like a big, like, loophole in this whole criminal enterprise you're running here.
Yeah. And there is kind of a theme you get in the second and third films with this incarnation of Gordon, which is that he's willing to overlook certain things in pursuit of his larger goals of, like, systemic reform. But that's not here in this one, so it's a little odd. But whatever, it's a small moment. So, okay, we hit on most of the characters here. We didn't, you know what? Last actor we haven't talked about. Ken Watanabe, fake Ra's al Ghul. The Orientalism on display in this movie is so fucking gross. And it's kind of extra gross by it being not just like some no-name Asian extra they got, but it's Ken Watanabe, who's like a great actor. We knew he was a great actor in 2005, who just gets to like sit in the back of the room and look vaguely menacing because he's Asian, according to the movie, and like that's our Ra's al Ghul. I don't like that, Sean.
It's weird because there was a part where I was like, is he supposed to be in like Hokkaido or something? Because why is it like I had forgotten that they just like, I mean, all of the League of Shadows stuff that they talk about is all ninja shit. Like they literally just call them ninjas. It's like, and here's you have a ninja thing and the art of the ninja and ninjutsu and blah 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 blah. And then it's seemingly run by Ken Watanabe. Ra's al Ghul is very notably not a Japanese name.
No.
It's also not. I mean, I think they're supposed to actually be in the Himalayas, but it's like Ra's al Ghul is a character who's supposed to be Arabic, and it's like a really weird mix of like, what is going on here? And then you find out that the Liam Neeson character, and I had written in my head a better version of what happens at the end of the movie, where I for years had just thought, oh, what happens is that the Ken Watanabe character was Ra's al Ghul, but Ra's al Ghul is not a person; it's a title. That's not what it is. No. Liam Neeson is literally, that's just Ra's al Ghul, who's an Irish dude.
It's the thing we were all worried Iron Man 3 was going to do with the Mandarin and Ben Kingsley. They just fucking do it.
Yes. And it is like some of the most blatant in your face, like extravagant version of Orientalism you can see in a modern movie, because it is just... It's like anybody who's like east of Western Europe just is like thrown into a weird melting pot, and then they're led by an Irish dude who's given an Arabic name. It's really bizarre. And
there's this moment at the end when like it's at the party before the fire starts, and this old woman comes over to she's not that old, that was mean. This older woman comes over to Bruce Wayne and says, Bruce, I have to introduce you to this. It's a really awkward piece of writing. She's like, I have to introduce you to this interesting guy. What did you say your name was? Ra's al Ghul. And then like the camera turns and it's this Asian, it's like this Chinese guy with like a Fu Manchu mustache. and we're like, oh, and then Liam Neeson walks in. And I'm like, you're leaning into it, Chris Nolan. I know you're British, but you're not British from 1950. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's like you didn't like grow up in like colonized India or some shit. Yeah, there's a part where that opening act that did make me kind of chuckle in this weird way of where, you know, he sets the building on fire and all that shit. It's just like, oh shit. Gotta save the one white guy. Leave all the Asian people to die. But I've got to save the one white person in this room. Everyone else can burn to death for all I care. But there's a white person here. Gotta save him. That's just really, it's like, it's very blatant. It's like very in your face with how comfortable the script is with just othering people who aren't white. And then just leaving it at that. It's really bizarre.
Yeah. Next time on this show, we'll talk about why does the Joker only kill black people in The Dark Knight? It's an eternal question I've had that I've never seen sufficiently answered. But watch the movie again. You'll see what I mean.
I'm glad you said that because I've never noticed that.
You never noticed that?
I will now.
A lot of black people in that movie.
All right.
It's weird.
I'll be looking out for that for the next episode.
It's we call that unconscious bias in the industry. No, okay.
I do have to say, Jonathan, we did end up skipping over an actor and a character. We didn't talk about Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow.
It's wasted because here's the thing. There is no better actor, living or dead, to play Jonathan Crane, the Scarecrow, than Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
And in his couple of scenes, he fucking gets it.
He's very good.
You know the meme of like, that actor got the assignment. Cillian Murphy got the assignment.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's the Batman.
Yeah.
He's so good in this.
He's here.
Yeah. And you have a couple moments where I love the fucking gnarly burlap sack thing, but we almost never see him in it. We only get brief visions of like the actual like Scarecrow fear visions he makes. The most we get is when Batman is talking to him and Batman has that like gnarly CGI
face.
I love that. That's great. I wish there was more of that. But Scarecrow is like sub-villain C in this movie. And it sucks.
Yeah, it's this thing where I 100% agree that like it's such a good casting, and that one really juicy scene he gets where Batman's up in the rafters or whatever, and he's like giving orders to the thugs. It's like that's really good, but fucking Scarecrow should have been cut from this movie. Like that so much feels like that is a hanger-on from some old draft from one of the other abandoned Batman movie projects, because he really has like nothing to do with anything else. It would be such a tighter second act if it was just Carmine Falcone working with Ra's al Ghul, and that was it.
Yeah, because I mean, the logic is that he's making the fear toxin, which then Ra's al Ghul is going to use on the whole city.
But you could have done anything.
Sure.
It's like, it doesn't have to be Scarecrow. Like, you've written in a reason to have the character in the movie.
Nominally, the theme that unites this whole movie is fear.
No, it's not.
They try. I said nominally. Yes. I said nominally.
They tell you that it's about fear, but it's so not. Like, that's just not a thing for so much of the movie.
It does kind of feel like a theme, like in a rewrite you went, okay, well, what's in the movie? We've got Scarecrow, we got a bunch of bats, we got fear toxin, Batman's going to monologue about fear. That's our thesis statement.
Yes, but Batman overcomes his fear in the first act of the movie.
And never has it again.
Yeah, and the only time he has it again, they like explain it away as like, oh, well, he gave me a more concentrated dose of it this time. I never experienced a dose that concentrated before. And it's like, that's why I had the hallucinations, because this is the thing I dealt with in the first act of this movie. Great screenwriting.
Yeah, no, not particularly good. It's too bad, because you could make such a good Scarecrow movie. Yeah. I feel like if I were to pair up two villains and make my own Batman movie, I would love to do like Scarecrow and Man-Bat together. Mm-hmm. You could make a hell of a movie that way. Yeah. That'd be fucking freaky.
Yeah, you think that you're just hallucinating the giant monster bat, but no, it is literally a giant monster bat that is going to eat.
That would be a great twist.
Uh-huh.
Right? Yeah. Anyway, but, you know, they tried. Whatever. It's still better than the villains in the last couple Batman movies.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell how much of an afterthought Scarecrow is in this film with how he gets dealt with finally, where Because Batman beats him in that scene, and then he's thrown away in Arkham, and then
Batman also gives him like a lethal dose of the fucking fear toxin and leaves him mind broken.
And tortures him and
fucking hypocrite, Batman.
Interrogates him Jack Bauer style. Yes, 100%. That's one of the most 24 scenes in this. That and dropping the dude off the rooftop. But then the League of Shadows guys come and break him out, and I don't really know why, because the Scarecrow's not special for any reason other than the fear toxin, which you've already dispersed in the atmosphere with the aerosol, microwave, bullshit, whatever. So it's like, there's nothing... You guys are the people who invented the fear gas. You guys are the people who gave him the flowers for the fear gas. Like, he's not, like, really Scarecrow, because all the fear stuff is actually comes from the League of Shadows. But they break him out, and then he rides around on a horse, and then he gets tased by Rachel and goes, ah, and gallops away. And then he never shows up again for the rest of the movie. And it's such a, feels like a reshoot because they realized he never showed up again. And it's like, well, we have to, because nobody knows who the fuck Ra's al Ghul is. But people know who Scarecrow is. They've heard of that Batman villain before. He's not an A-lister, but you've heard about him. So we gotta have him in the movie. You gotta shoot a last scene with Scarecrow.
They should have just done Mad Hatter, Calendar Man,
Yeah, Tweedledee and Tweedledum is what I was pulling for, but...
King Tut.
Yes, exactly. The penny plunderer. Bring him back. Come on, let's go.
Falcone's number one muscle, the penny plunderer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's too bad. That stuff, whatever. It was my introduction to Scarecrow back in the day, and I've since seen other Batman stuff that uses him much better, like... Arkham Knight does it fucking great. All the Arkham games do.
The Arkham games feel like it's one of the best versions of that character.
Yeah,
you can
absolutely. Anyone else we're forgetting?
I feel like we didn't talk specifically about Liam Neeson, but we basically talked about Liam Neeson. I don't know.
He's Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
This is a decent use of your Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
You're gonna get a certain performance from Liam Neeson every time, unless it's something like really special, like The Grey or something. But this is a fine use of Liam Neeson.
Yes, it's a very good vintage Neeson. I think I think the whole thing with the training on the ice and the sword fight, it's just like he just sells that shit so hard. You gotta like Liam Neeson.
So about the movie itself, I mean, one thing to say about this movie is it's fucking gorgeous. I think. Yeah. So this was shot by Wally Feister, who is Nolan's normal director of photography up through Dark Knight Rises. Then Wally Feister decided he wanted to go direct movies, and he's directed some very bad movies, and I wish he would go back behind the camera, because I think he's a genuinely quite talented DP. And I think this movie looks great. It's got some of the stuff like in the Himalayas, and like the specific compositions they choose and all that location work is just phenomenal. A lot of like Bruce's journey overseas is really good. I like the color scheme this goes for. Like, this is not a like colorless movie, but it's somewhat monotonal in how it chooses like this sort of amber brown color scheme.
Yeah.
But I find it very compelling. I think it looks very good. The production design is a little all over the place, because I feel like it is this mix of like actual city plus sort of Tim Burton-esque, but it can't really decide.
Yeah, that's part of that. Like, it feels like it has these fingerprints of like an older, more traditionally gothic Batman thing in there, but it's not really the aesthetic that the movie wants to fully commit to.
But in general, I mean, Chris Nolan's movies look good, especially the ones with Wally Feister behind the camera, and this one looks great. We both watched the 4K Blu-ray, right?
I actually didn't, because I realized I ordered all three of the Nolan movies on 4K Blu-ray, but the Batman Begins one got canceled, and that was like 4 months ago, and I was like, oh, I can order that later. Totally forgot that I actually have it, so I just streamed it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about the 4K Blu-ray real quick, and we'll catch up with the other ones too. This movie has always looked pretty bad on home video, because it's a mid-2000s movie that probably had a digital intermediate, and just it looked very processed and soft on DVD. Yeah. And then the Blu-ray was really bad, because it was... The HD DVD was made first and is just a slightly nicer looking version of the DVD, and then the Blu-ray was just a poor